my hot fat guys, gals, non-binary, and trans pals. I am so happy that you are all here today. You hot, sexy motherfuckers, you. I'm here with a brand new friend, my new friend Josiah, on this latest episode of the Hot Fat Guy Club podcast. Josiah, how the fuck are you today?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful.
Awesome, man. Now, why are you here? Tell me about yourself. Give us the lowdown. Who are you?
All right. Well, my name's Josiah. I live in a little small town in PA. I was homeschooled my whole life, and I'm also the oldest of 6 kids.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I have a very different upbringing than a lot of people. I went into public school,
Okay.
sophomore of high school.
That must have been a fucking culture shock.
Yeah. I had to do a lot of learning.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Why don't we, before we get into anything else, let's start there. What the fuck was that like?
It was horrible.
Oh, no.
It was really bad. Before I went to high school, I had 2 friends.
Okay.
We were both homeschooled, and every week we would go to Hot Shots. I don't know if that's a thing anywhere else.
What is that?
It's like a sports building. It's got like an ice skating rink and like some other stuff, but it's just like a little building where they'll have like events and stuff.
Okay.
But we would go there every week, and all the homeschool kids would just hang out, and that was like the only social interaction I had my whole life. And we would do that like every week. And then during schooling, like I was teaching myself basically everything. Like my mom would just give me books and I would just do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to learn more about music. And they both had backgrounds in vocal performance. Both of them were singers back in the day. But I didn't want to sing at that time. I wanted to play drums.
Right. Coming from a professional singer's perspective, that was the correct choice. Being a singer sucks ass.
So I asked them to put me into school so I could join the marching band.
Okay.
So they did that. I joined in 2016, and I had no clue how to interact with anyone my age at all. I had never met a person who was my age. So going into that was a complete culture shock.
Yep.
Plus, I wasn't like super smart or anything. I was just kind of like surviving.
Mm-hmm.
But that, like, the main difficulty was entering society as a teenager who had previous to that just watched anime in my room. Mm-hmm. It was very hard for me to open up. I was a very quiet kid.
Mm-hmm.
Marching band helped me get out of that. I was I had a lot of success in the band and like music spaces in school. But everywhere outside of that, I was not a human.
Okay. So what were the hardest, what were the hardest parts? Like in terms of interacting with other students? Like were you immediately the target for all of the bullies? Or
I was a target for some of them the first year. And I didn't know how to like cope with that. I just didn't speak. I didn't look at anyone. I just did my thing, went to the band room as much as I could because that was the only place that I felt safe.
Right.
And then like I was going through a lot of mental trouble at that point, very depressed. So I dropped out.
Okay.
Like halfway through the second semester. And I took the rest of that time to like kind of get myself back into a working state. So when I came back junior year, I was way better. I did a lot of learning. I started to understand how people worked.
Right.
More. So I didn't really care about what they said at that point, and they kind of stopped bullying me.
Great.
Except for like in gym.
Yeah, well,
yeah, gym was always bad, but other than gym, it was fine. And I got a lot more friends, and I was a lot more sociable. And then senior year, even better. Like I was section leader in marching band. I was the lead in our musical that year. That was also the first year I started doing musicals and started singing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when that started also, and I got super like addicted to that.
Attention is nice. When you
Attention.
captive audiences are nice.
Well, I hate attention. I hate being perceived, except when I'm on stage. If I'm on stage, love it. That's the only time I want to be perceived in any way.
In my opinion, you did one of the hardest possible things that you could ever do. Like I have my going into high school experience is similar but completely fucking different in that I transferred districts. I was bullied so much in middle school that I had to leave that district completely and go to a high school in a different district, and it was liberating and also terrifying in a way to go to a school with all new people, right? Then I didn't know anyone there except for the two kids that I happened to be friends with that also went to that school. You went through high school on fucking hardcore mode, dude.
Yeah,
That is.
I've always heard horror stories about middle school.
Mm-hmm.
Never touched it. I had
Lucky you.
Sophomore year was my entire middle school.
Yeah.
Like all that stuff, all that trauma happened sophomore year.
Yep. I mean, that's a lot of trauma to pack into one single year of school. I mean, so what were the in between that sophomore and junior year? What were the tools and the skills that you learned going into that year to make your social situation better? I'm very curious about that.
I did a lot of. I didn't go to therapy, but I watched like therapy YouTubers.
Okay.
Because like I'm a huge YouTube head.
Mm-hmm.
That's like all the content I watch is on YouTube. Mm-hmm. So I got a lot of perspectives from that, and I kind of tried to use that. And then I just faked it till I made it. I always do that. It's great.
Say that one more time for everybody listening.
Fake it till you make it. It works.
So, okay. All right. So this is okay. This is fun. This is fun. What did you do? How did you fake it? Because I so stand by this. I call it this usually comes up at the end of every episode that I do, but I call it the Rachel Dolezal effect. Do you remember Rachel Dolezal?
No.
So everyone listening will know this, but she is a white woman who was the Washington State president of a chapter of the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. And in, I want to say like 2015, it was a huge news story that broke because she was in fact a white woman basically doing perpetual blackface. Do not recommend that. However, I will say that her wackadoo confidence to pull that off somehow is very impressive. Bad, but the more if you tell yourself you're a lamp 10,000 times a day, eventually you are going to believe that you are a lamp. And the more you fake that I am confident, I am charismatic, I am fearless, I don't give a fuck what people say, the more you tell yourself that and the more you like outwardly portray that, the more true that will become, because eventually you won't give a fuck what other people are saying to you.
Absolutely.
So how did you do it?
I created a persona.
Oh my God, yes! Oh, you're doing all the work for me!
Yep.
So what was your persona?
Someone who didn't give a fuck.
But what kind of didn't give a fuck? Because I think everyone's didn't give a fuck is a little bit different. So what was yours?
Like, I don't care what people think of me specifically as a person. I know that they have their own shit. So their opinion of me doesn't really matter because they don't know my shit.
Okay.
So that's a big part of it.
All right. So now I'm going to ask you a really tough question. You are how old now?
23.
You're 20. Oh God, you're in the Blink 182 age when nobody likes you when you're 23. Only old people are going to understand that reference. But okay, so you're 23 now. I assume when you were a sophomore, you were what, like sophomore going into junior, you were like 15, 16?
16, 17.
Okay. Do you still
15, 16. Yeah.
Do you still feel that way now as an adult? And is faking till you make it still as effective for you now as it was when you were in high school?
It's a little different now because I'm a lot closer to that person.
This makes me so fucking happy. Oh my God. Okay, explain.
Over time, I've been doing it for a lot of years now.
Uh-huh.
Over time, my actual personality turns into the persona. And it's not like I'm not becoming a different person. It is me, but it's who I want to be.
Oh, I could cry. I'm so happy. So just real quick for anybody who's listening, this shit fucking works. Number one, it takes a long time, but it works. And what are, like, be specific with me. Like, what are the things that have now become your reality? What aspects of that persona that you created going into your junior year of high school that now in your 23-year-old self are your daily reality, are your daily outward manifestation of who you, Josiah, are on a daily basis?
I'm the kind of person that you can pick out in a crowd.
Yep.
I stand out a lot.
Yep.
I have a very specific style.
Mm-hmm.
Like I wear clothes that I've made.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like I'll take clothes from Goodwill, shred them up, use them. I love like using female clothes and like altering them to make them fit for me.
Fuck
so
yeah.
That's one
You're
thing.
gonna have to send me some pictures to put in the show notes for that then.
All right, yeah. So that's one. I'm a lot more vocal as a human. I used to not talk to anyone. I used to mind my own business. Now I just have fun. Like if I have something to say, I'll say it.
Right.
And I'm confident in saying that. And I'm just, this also helped a lot with theater, and theater kind of made it happen. I'm much louder, and I project my voice with like authority.
Yeah, that shit makes a big difference.
It does.
It
really
makes
does.
a big difference. There's nothing worse than a quiet talker, in my opinion, especially as a person who is also the loudest person in the room in any room that he's in. But I don't know. I really do believe that there's something to be said about being confident in what you have to say, even if, you don't have anything to say. I'm so happy that you're saying the things that you are. When you are a literal larger than life person and you are literally the biggest person in the room, we are encouraged is not the word. We are berated into making ourselves smaller, right? Yeah. We are berated into yes, we're forced into a box. We are forced to minimize ourselves, and there's a million different reasons why that happens, but a lot of it is, and this is something that I still experience on a daily basis, is people are threatened by large personalities, large bodies, and with large personalities, and people who don't fit into the typical idea of what is, attractive, right? In terms of the very, very minimal window that has been shoved down our throats for our entire lives, in terms of who has, I hate this term, but social value based on their looks. And it's why our tagline is take up space, because we literally take up more space. We have more mass, but we also have to allow our personalities and ourselves to do that, and to not make ourselves smaller and hold ourselves back from, one, who we really are, two, the interactions with people that we want to have, and three, the energy that we naturally bring into whatever room, purely because of we are the most noticeable person.
Yeah.
And this might just be the camera angle, but you look like you're also pretty tall. How tall are you?
I'm 6'1".
Yeah. So
I'm up there a little bit.
Yeah. So, it is a difficult thing to be a very noticeable person in the room and to feel like, oh, I have to not only make myself smaller, but I have to withhold my personality from the world, because God forbid people see who I really am. Because I'm supposed to be the like meek fat person, and I'm not allowed to have a big personality, and I'm not allowed to be the guy, the hot guy, or the guy that fucks, or the guy that does this or does that, or the successful whatever.
Yeah.
Because of what I look like. And it's funny, you're the second person I've talked to in the last 3 days who is 10 years younger than I am and is so much further on the road to self-confidence and self-acceptance than I ever was when I was 23. The other person I spoke to was 22. So one, fuck you. And two, congratulations.
Another thing I did, like from that time, is I created someone in my head to talk to, who was
Ooh,
not me.
tell me more about that.
Well, I would start out like just talking to myself in my head before bed, like for a few hours, and just be like, "What am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
What should I be doing?" And eventually, that person became like an actual, like they had thoughts that weren't mine.
Okay.
And I watched a video by Dr. K, Healthy Gamer, and he said that is the equivalent of what word did he? Enlightenment.
Mm-hmm.
So when someone's enlightened, they're able to speak with a separate entity than themselves in their head.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Okay.
That's it.
No, that's very interesting. I personally have a different relationship with my. That's very interesting to
It
me
was
because I
very back and forth though, because sometimes I would
yeah
get there, sometimes it would be very self-loathing.
yeah that's more where my inner voice goes. So what?
Yeah.
Give me an example of what that conversation sounds like.
It's been a while since I've been able to do that, but I would tell them about like how I'm feeling. Like if I was real sad that day for whatever reason,
Mm-hmm.
they would lift me up and show me things in the future that I could work on for that not to happen, for like me to not put myself down in that way.
Interesting.
And I
Okay.
haven't been able to do that in like 3 years.
Why not?
I don't know.
Hmm. So looking at your intake form here, because I think this is your relationship to yourself seems very solid. I'm very impressed. Let's talk about your relationship to your meat sack
All right. All
because
right. Yeah.
this is the other part, right? So you said to me, my body image has plummeted the last few months. I changed a lot while I was in a relationship, and now that I'm out of it, I notice how much weight I've put on and my muscle mass depleted. I went from
Yeah.
250 to 300. You're super confident in bursts, and you've played a lot of characters that have wore very little clothing on stage,
Yep.
so you don't care what others think. Good. But to myself, you don't love where you're at, and I've been experimenting with style, which gives you an extra boost of confidence.
Yeah.
So, talk to me about the plummet in your body image. What has changed? Because specific and what I want to know specifically is like not necessarily what you see when you look in the mirror. We can talk about that, but more so when you look in the mirror, what are you saying to yourself when you do?
I try not to look at the mirror specifically,
Okay.
because
Why
that
not?
I just don't feel great. So I
Okay.
just try not to keep me from getting that like hit.
Mm-hmm.
But back in high school, I had a lot of body dysmorphia.
Mm-hmm.
I was not that big.
Mm-hmm.
At like looking back, looking at pictures, I was small. But I thought I was the size I am now. Like I looked in the mirror and I thought I was as big as I currently am.
Okay.
So I always tried to like do cardio work on that, and I never saw a difference,
Mm-hmm.
even though there was an actual difference, but it didn't seem so when I would look at myself.
Right.
And back in 2022,
Mm-hmm.
I played Rocky and Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Okay.
And for that, for like 2 months, I dieted and I trained every day for that role. And I felt great.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was the best I ever felt. Um, and then I maintained that for a good while after the show.
Mm-hmm.
But I got into a relationship in my last relationship, and
Sorry.
I kind of slowly lost that
Mm-hmm.
feeling. I just feel like I'm so far behind where I was then. I feel like I've
Okay.
taken steps back.
Let's talk about that. When you say that you feel like you've taken steps back, what do you mean by that? As in, you've reverted to a past version of yourself? Tell me.
Yeah. So before Rocky, I was 300 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't work out. I didn't
Yep.
feel horrible, but I didn't feel great.
Okay.
Uh, and then like I would look at myself in pictures and be like, eh,
Mm-hmm.
like I feel like I could be better. I could do better. So I worked my ass off for those
Mm-hmm.
2 months.
So walk. What did you do?
So I would eat chicken and eggs and rice
Mm-hmm.
every day, and
Yep.
then uh, I would go to work, come home, eat, go to the gym, and
Yep.
I would work out for like 3 hours maybe every day,
Mm-hmm.
and I would just do that consistently. And I went to I still go to I go to a boxing gym.
Good.
So I would train boxing, and then I would lift
Mm-hmm.
afterwards.
Okay.
So that was my main thing. I worked a lot on my shoulders because that was
The
kind of
Tom
like,
Hardy traps is what I call them.
yeah, got
Yep.
got some definition there.
Yep. That lasted for 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I want to just touch back to on the diet for a second. So you ate chicken, eggs, and rice. How many times a day?
Twice.
Twice, and it was just those two meals.
Yep.
Okay. Well
Previous,
seasoned.
I made it myself. It
Mm-hmm.
started out bad, but it got okay at the end.
Okay. Um, and it was just that for every meal.
Yep.
Yep.
I hated
Okay.
myself.
Yep. This sounds so very familiar, right? We have a catalyst, right?
Hmm.
We have a reason, an external reason to lose an immense amount of weight very quickly,
Yeah.
which I'm not a scientist or a nutritionist or a personal trainer. I've just lost and gained massive amounts of weight many times in my life. I just want to put that disclaimer out there. But we have an external catalyst for us to lose a lot of weight when we're already larger. It is much easier for us to lose a large amount of weight very quickly, with drastic changes that we make. And those changes can be sustainable for usually about 2 to 3 months.
Hmm.
For me, the sustainability of it would depend largely on how depressed and rageful I was. The more depressed and the more angry I was, the longer I was able to sustain it, because spite is a hell of a motivator,
Yeah.
but not a good motivator, right?
Hmm.
Um, and we reach a point where we plateau with that progress and that weight loss, and then the game changes, right?
Yep.
We lose that like first round of fat, that really drastic amount of weight, and when we hit that plateau, then there are even more drastic changes, because our body, I don't have the scientific terms for this, but our body basically gets used to what we're doing to it. And then either we have to get even more intense, go into an even crazier calorie deficit, be even more restrictive with what we're doing to ourselves. And then that's that point where it becomes nearly impossible to sustain this for a long time. Where if we want to get past the plateau, we have to put that much more work in, versus maintaining that point and then finding, I don't know if you've ever listened to the maintenance phase podcast, but shout out to them, they're awesome. Maintaining that maintenance phase where all of our purely human caloric needs are met, and then also like what exercise works for us to kind of stay at that point.
Yeah.
But it's very difficult when we're there, because also it's, we've done all this work, we've seen all this progress, and then when the progress stops, it's really difficult to keep going, right?
Yeah.
Especially after you've had when I've always been big, I've always been fat, I've always struggled immensely with my weight. I never really had the it wasn't until I was a senior in high school that I was given the correct like tool set to work with to be able to lose that. But it always came from some external factor that I wasn't able to sustain over time, right? For me,
Yeah.
going into my senior year of high school, I lost 50 pounds for football. I was trying to change positions on offense from offensive line to play fullback because I wanted to carry the ball and I wanted to be able to get a running start to hit people. But then that didn't work out. And when the season was over, I ended up gaining back all of that weight, right?
Yeah.
Then there was another thing when I was in college. All my voice teachers told me you have to lose 150 pounds to have a career, blah, 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 blah. I lose
That's
30
lame.
pounds because it was insane. I lose 30 pounds because I was working at a gym, my first job out of college. I tell my voice teacher that, and I was really proud of myself. And she looked me dead in the eyes and she goes, good, 120 more to go.
Fuck.
And then that, boom, there goes all the progress right there. And for me, my greatest comfort was always food. So that was the most difficult thing to take away because that has always and will always be my favorite drug,
Yeah.
LSD being a very close second. But there's always something that I have experienced, and this isn't just when it comes to my weight or my body or things like that, but it also comes to like my mental health or my like my like singing technique or other things like that, where I'm just like, I could have been doing this for so long, but I'm only doing it now. The other time, now is the right time for it. The other times before weren't,
Yeah.
right? And the fact of the matter is the meat sack is going to fluctuate constantly. We are the ones that are in control over how we feel about it. And we're allowed to feel whatever we want. We're the only ones that get to decide how we feel about our body, right?
Yeah.
And we have the power, we have the ability to dictate, for the most part, dictate what changes we want to make if we do, how we perceive ourselves, how we feel about ourselves, and if we want to make a change, whether or not to do it. And we also get to decide what catalysts we want to make that change for. And I think in my opinion, like, I'm the CEO of the Hot Fat Guy Club, but it's not my job to tell people how to live their lives, right?
Yeah.
If any member ever wants to lose weight, good for them. I hope they do it in a way that works for them. And I hope that once they do that, they continue to give respect to their former fat self and also realize that it's much more likely that their fat self will return versus them staying skinny forever. Because I've been the skinny guy multiple times. The fat self has always returned one way or the
Yeah.
other. And it's also big about how you treat other people after you've done that. You're not better than someone
You're
else
the
just
same
because you
person.
figured out how to lose weight. Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you hate yourself when you're fat, you're still going to hate yourself when you're skinny. If you hate yourself when you have $7 in your bank account, you're still going to hate yourself when you have 7 billion,
Yeah.
right? You're going to be a lot less stressed because money is the ultimate stress reliever. But, that's another conversation for another day.
Yeah.
What I hear when you tell me about how you lost the weight, why it happened, and also kind of in your timeline when the weight was regained, right?
Hmm.
It to me it sounds like it was unsustainable because
I
it was that like very fast, very quickly.
I very purposely I went into that knowing that I wouldn't sustain it. Like I wasn't gonna
Yep.
keep eating that every day for the rest of my life. I like
Yep.
food.
Yep.
I like to binge eat.
Yep. Yep.
so so like it's not gonna stay that way. But after like I kind of went back to my old habits, but I
Mm-hmm.
stayed at my normal weight or
Mm-hmm.
at that weight at the time for a
Mm-hmm.
long time, for like almost a year.
Okay.
And then a little bit after I was in that relationship, I started gaining it back, and I didn't notice it happening because
Mm-hmm.
I was very in love with this person.
Okay, so let's talk about this because I think I'm guessing that these are connected. We've barely even scratched the surface here. So walk me through this. Tell me what you feel comfortable with sharing about the relationship and how that, because also like there, I don't have any scientific data for this, but there's a 1-to-1 correlation that relationship happiness leads to weight gain,
Yeah.
which is not a bad thing. All right,
No,
God
no.
damn, God forbid that we're fat and fucking happy. But walk me through it. What happened?
Okay, so we got together in April of last year.
Okay.
Okay. Uh and we very quickly we became very close very quickly. And after like 3 months, she got essentially kicked out of her house.
Okay.
So she moved in with me and my family.
Whoa.
Basically,
Okay.
she would be here 6 out of 7 days a week.
Okay.
So we spent a lot of time together
Mm-hmm.
for months. And then in December we got a house.
Okay.
We rented a house. So we moved in together. Everything, great. Oh, I I did forget to mention.
Mm-hmm.
This is a big part of why we broke up. In
Okay.
September, and also why I'm like miserable.
Mm-hmm.
In September, a very close friend of mine passed away.
Oh, I'm so
Like
sorry, dude.
very, very unexpectedly.
Mm-hmm.
Like out
So
of
wait,
nowhere.
you gained weight when you were grieving, Josiah?
Yeah.
That's never happened to anyone ever.
Yeah.
Never.
And
Okay.
I've
So
never.
hold on. Pause. 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 I am so sorry. That fucking sucks. Grief is literally the worst mental state on the planet.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
it
I've learned
is.
that.
Yep. It's a nightmare. That's an important fucking detail that you left out there, my friend.
I tend to do that. I I'm not one for details.
Fair. Okay. All right. So someone very dear to you died in September. You guys move in December.
hmm
And then what?
Uh, I hated my job. I wasn't full time musician at that
Mm-hmm.
time.
Okay.
I absolutely hated my job, and I would get bullied relentlessly by one girl who was there for no
Okay.
reason. I never did
Mm-hmm.
anything to her. She just hated my guts for some reason. But I ended up like, and I didn't do anything about the death. Like I just
Mm-hmm.
kind of ignored it for months,
Yep.
as I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never had that kind of grief before,
Mm-hmm.
so I didn't
Was
know
it a
what to
family
do.
member or a friend?
It was a friend,
Okay.
but uh, I kind of had a mental breakdown and quit my job
Okay.
and was like, I need something better. I need
Right.
something else. She didn't take that well, and I was kind of more focused on my mental health at the time. Like we
Mm-hmm.
had a talk, and both of us were like, I need time to get myself on track. So I spent the next like 2 weeks going to therapy like every few days
Mm-hmm.
and like working on myself hardcore. And I got into a pretty good spot, and I was like, "What's up?" And like we're living together, and we haven't
All
spoken in
right.
2 weeks really.
Mm-hmm. That's hard.
And then she's like, "Well, I don't want to. I don't. I got things to go through too." So 2 more weeks go by, and it's Easter.
Mm-hmm.
We're at we're at my grandma's house with my
Mm-hmm.
family. And she was like, I also bought a ring. I was going to propose,
Okay.
and she knew about it, and she was very excited for that. But she mentioned to me at Easter that she was overwhelmed by it, and I was like, "Hey, we don't got to do that. That's
Yeah.
I know it's early, it's fast. I just
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to. So
Yeah. No, I get that. I do.
yeah, so I was like, well, we can call that off. We can chill, take a few years. And she was just like, I don't know if I even want to be in a relationship. And I was like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do what you need to, I guess. I mean, I didn't take it well, but
Yeah.
and we didn't break up at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But I got another job
Mm-hmm.
doing door to door sales, which I was not
Yeah.
not expecting. Like I didn't. I applied for that job thinking it was like a normal sales job,
Mm-hmm.
but then it was door to door, and
Mm-hmm.
I was just kind of overwhelmed by that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to focus on that, but I couldn't because like I was like concerned about our relationship. And she went to New York with her mom.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't talk to me. Haven't really spoken to me much at all. Like at home, was sleeping on the couch. Uh, but she comes back and she's like, "Can we meet at Panera Bread?" And I was like, "This is
Mm-hmm.
gonna be a breakup."
Mm-hmm.
So I went to Panera Bread, and she's with her mom. Her mom's sitting right next to her. Yeah.
What?
Also, her mom, horrible person. She is like, she hates
This
her
is the
mom.
same mother that kicked her out of the house?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. All
Um,
right. Yep.
she is very manipulative, and she is
Mm-hmm.
very narcissistic, like extremely so. I have a lot of history with narcissists,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I was like, what the fuck? What? Why is she here? Like this is not this is not the place to do that. And she's like, well, we're breaking up, and you have to move out today. Like you cannot go home. You have like pack a bag and go to your parents.
Okay.
And I was a little upset, so I just left. I didn't talk because I knew nothing I said would have mattered.
Uh-huh.
So I just got up and I left, and I went home, and I started getting my friends ready to move me out.
Mm-hmm.
So and then she gets home like 10 minutes later, and she's like, "You have to leave." Well, she said, "I would really appreciate it if you stayed with your parents." And I
Okay.
and I kept saying like, "They don't have room for me. Like I don't
Uh-huh.
have like they don't have a room. I don't have a place to stay there." And she's like, and then she kept repeating like, "Please go." So I did. Slept on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next day, I took some of my best friends, got their trucks, got my van, and we moved me out. And then she got pissed because I moved out. She was mad that I touched her things that were in my things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then I learned a little tidbit that she was dating one of my friends. Not any of them who were with me,
Uh-huh.
but someone who I introduced her to as my friend.
Oh, that's always fun.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
Josiah, I'm
throughout
sorry.
our relationship after Brady's death, they got very close.
Mm-hmm.
He would give her acting lessons every week.
Okay.
Yeah, because he's like a professional actor. He went to school for it, and like I got her into acting with me, and
Uh-huh.
she's very talented. She was very good. Like she was immediately her first role was a lead, and like she has natural talent for that.
Mm-hmm.
But she would go to his place at least once a week, sometimes twice,
Right.
and then do lessons, and then they would hang out and watch movies.
Okay.
And they had a lot of chemistry. So
Mm-hmm.
like at some point, I told her like, "Hey, I feel uncomfortable. Like you guys are getting really close. I want to hang out with you. You keep going to his house like every couple days."
Uh-huh.
And she started lying about it.
Uh-huh.
I caught her a few times where she said she was somewhere and then she was actually there. Uh, and then I didn't accuse her. I just said, I feel something happening, and like I need help. I need reassurance. But she got
Mm-hmm.
mad at me. It was like, why would you accuse me? You don't trust me anymore. Like the trust is broken. And I mean it was,
Right.
but I wasn't like fully aware of what was happening. But literally
Yeah.
the weekend that we broke up, they were together.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay. That's a lot to happen in a short
Yep.
period
It
of
was a crazy
time.
year.
Yeah.
We broke up
2023 was a bit.
broke up 2 days before our anniversary.
Yep. Yep. That's fun. That's always good. That must have felt so good for you.
Mhm.
All right. Well, first things first, thank you for sharing all of that. I'm very sorry. That's terrible. I want to start with the grief because was it the first person that was close to you that's ever died?
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
I eat my feelings. I eat my feelings, and that is my go to when I feel myself or the world spiraling out of control, right?
Mhm.
My comfort is food. And this past fall, my father died in September. My mentor died 3 weeks after that. And another person that I was very close to died 3 weeks after that.
Hmm.
And it's so interesting, like being the person that I am and the way I am obsessed with my brain and the way I feel things and why I feel them and why I would churn through therapists like an Amish person does butter. Because I am, quite frankly, better at therapizing myself than most of the therapists I've ever had. And I needed
Same.
someone who was kind of had the ability to, like, not literally, but smack me in the face and be like, shut the fuck up. Stop intellectualizing what you're feeling and just fucking feel it, asshole.
Yeah.
And I've managed to find that person, and they're amazing, and I'm so thankful to have them. But I always feel like I'm kind of like watching myself, like I'm a sim going through life doing things, and I'm always hyper analytical about why I feel things and things like that.
Yeah.
And for me to get to this point where I don't have a piece of lead in my brain, I had to get really good at being able to do that for myself. And after my father died, I lost 40 pounds in like 3 weeks, not on purpose,
Yeah.
because all of the things that I expected, like my dad was 92 when he passed. My dad, I had an old father. He was 60 when he had me. So like, it was always a thing that was very much at the forefront of my mind all the time. When I, just to, some other context, when I got my first cell phone in 7th grade, the deal that I had to make with my parents was that this was after my parents had gotten divorced. My dad was living on his own. The deal he made with me to allow me to get a cell phone was that I had to call him every morning to make sure that he was still alive.
Whoa.
Yeah,
That's
that's not traumatic at
crazy.
all for an
Yeah.
11-year-old, right? Or however the fuck old I was. So, every single day, especially once I moved to the East Coast, because I was 3 hours ahead, there was always this like question of like, this is today the day,
Mhm.
right? And all of the emotional responses that I was planning on having because I had thought about this for so long, right? It was the exact opposite. And in the process of everything happening, I like couldn't eat at
Yeah.
all for 6 weeks, right? And I had to eat because we have to eat. But it was so fascinating how the thing that always was my ultimate comfort turned into not even a blip on the radar, and how grief takes your brain and just fucking shakes it like it's a little baby, and then the baby dies. That's a bad metaphor, but it completely scrambles your insides, and you don't act rationally, and you don't know how to take care of yourself, and you don't know how you're going to react from one minute to the next because you're so mentally discombobulated, right?
Yeah.
And to deal with that, like dealing with the grief in and of its alone is enough. But then to have to deal with the rest of your life as well, it's like
To keep living.
right, and that's incredibly difficult. And so to have to do that and to be dealing like, it's also very hard for the partner of the person who is grieving. Like my birthday was 7 weeks after my father died, and this was like after everybody else had died too.
Yeah.
And poor Kelly, my partner, she tried so hard to make me have to make things nice for my birthday so that I could have a good birthday. And she failed at no fault of her own, because my brain
It's an
and my
impossible
heart,
task.
yes, my brain and my heart were just like, no, you're not allowed to be happy today. You're
Yeah.
just going to be sad. And, I was talking to another friend of mine whose his wife's father had died of cancer. And I was just like, because I was curious to hear it from the perspective of someone else who had been the partner of someone going through the grief, right?
Mhm.
He's like, it's impossible, because you feel that pain as well, and all you want to do is make them feel better, but you know that you can't.
Yeah.
And based on what you told me in terms of like her family situation and all this other shit, like you were doomed, like there was nothing.
She also
It was
she also went deaf.
what?
Yeah. So she played the main character for Still Magnolias, if you've ever seen the movie.
Okay.
And in that movie, she dies of kidney failure, I think.
Okay.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Well, during the show, she had a double kidney infection. And then after the show, she was bedridden. And then we took her to the ER. And that next morning, she just couldn't hear out of her left ear at all. Completely gone.
And is that a permanent thing now?
It's permanent. She has a hearing.
What?
Yeah, she has a. It's just it can just happen, I guess. You can just lose it for no reason.
Whoa. That's terrifying.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, so both of you went through a lot of life. You both went through a lot of life, and that doesn't excuse anyone for treating the other person poorly. And like, not to take a shot at you, but I'm sure there's details that you're not telling me as well,
yeah,
and that's okay.
It's my side of the story, but like there's infinite other things.
Yeah, but I'm here for you, right? So like whatever, it's we've all gone through a breakup. We all know that most of the time we're both at fault, and like that doesn't matter in this context, because what we're talking about is you and how that like affected your mental state, affected your body, and all that. So like, oh my God, oh no, you went through a terrible breakup and a whole bunch of traumatic shit, and you did what humans do, and you ate your feelings and you gained some weight. Yeah. Is that a reason for you to be a dick to yourself over, Josiah?
No, but
okay,
it happens.
No, there's no but. No, period. End of sentence. That's it. So I want you, what's very important for me, what I want your takeaway to be from this portion of the conversation is to like acknowledge to yourself that you've had a very hard year. You've been through a lot. Okay. And your body kept you alive and upright and moving and feeling and crying and suffering and thriving and all of the myriad of things that happen to us as a human being through what is, I would imagine, in your, God, you're so young, 23 years of existing was probably the worst year-long portion of it that you've ever had.
Maybe.
Yeah.
There's another one.
One of the worst. Okay. So, what is nice is that now you have the opportunity to create new habits for yourself, if that is indeed what you want to do. Mm-hmm. How long have you been following me on social media?
I think the day I sent in the application was the day I saw one of your TikToks.
Okay, great. So I don't know if you've ever seen me talk about it, but I go boxing 5 days a week. I love boxing. I think it is. Boxing is one, so fun.
I love it so much.
So good for your brain.
Yeah.
So good for your brain.
Have you ever tried chess boxing?
Yeah. No. Okay. So I've never tried it, but I know about it. So that's funny you mentioned that. I used to teach chess.
Oh,
Yeah, I used to teach. This is so my. I can't go too into detail about this because I got doxxed. Because anyway, I used to teach chess to rich people's 3-year-olds, and it was always funny whenever like I would meet anyone that was really a chess player. They were like, "Oh, so you're good at chess, right?" And I'm like, "No, you didn't listen to what I said. I teach
3-year-olds.
3-year-olds."
Yeah.
But chess boxing, I would love to do a chess boxing event because I think it would be really fun. I love the concept of it, and it's hilarious.
It's so
But
fun.
I found boxing in 2017 when I was going through the second of the worst breakup that I had ever gone through with the same person.
Ooh.
Yeah, not good.
Yeah.
And I am also a person that attracts narcissists. And after I had gotten dumped by said narcissist twice, I had found quite literally the Micah narcissist, the most mega narcissist I've ever met in my entire life. This person, I would have jumped off a fucking cliff for them. I would have, good Lord, like there were not many things that this woman couldn't have gotten me to do.
Yeah.
And she owned this boxing studio that was 35 minutes of boxing followed immediately by 20 minutes of yoga. And one of the things that
Ooh.
had kept me going throughout those 2 breakups was I was an everyday hot yoga person. And it was, that was like where I started to be able to kind of like, if you imagine your mind and your thoughts as like a loom that you're weaving a blanket or something on, right? Where I could like pull the individual strings of my sadness and my depression and my rage and like look at them and inspect them and be like, I love you, but I don't need you anymore kind of thing. And then to take that like meditative present practice and to beat the shit out of an inanimate object and let all of that out and then have those like that like moment of stillness to process those feelings,
Yeah.
right? I was addicted to boxing ever since then.
That's
So
super interesting. I want to try that.
it was amazing. I mean, I highly recommend it, even if it's just like if you go to a boxing class and then just like sit in your car and meditate for 20 minutes. Like I'll send you if anyone is interested in meditation, there's 2 things that I really recommend. Any Eckhart Tolle meditation. There's a bunch of stuff that he's done of guided meditations, and there's another. I'll link this in the show notes. I talk about John Bradshaw all the time. John Bradshaw is my Jesus. He wrote a book called Healing the Shame That Binds You. I talk about it all the time. If you haven't read it, fucking read it. But on YouTube, there is a series that he did for PBS in the 80s called Homecoming. In the 6th episode, if you literally type in John Bradshaw Homecoming 6 on YouTube, the episode is called Reclaiming Your School-Age Child. And there is an inner child meditation that he does there that is about 10 minutes long. At the end of the episode, if I believe the timestamp is 43 minutes and 40 seconds. Not like I watch this a lot. That is some fucking I am the way, the truth, and the shame light gospel right there. So even if it is just go to your boxing class and then sit and meditate for 10 minutes, or, do yoga when you get home, whatever, find a way to meld those two processes and just like find a sustainable way. If you want to feel more comfortable in your body, that's amazing. And you should do that, but do it in a way that's actually sustainable and makes you feel good and doesn't make you miserable perpetually. Because that's something that was like, when in many of the different weight loss phases that I went through, I did it to punish myself, not because I wanted to do it as like a gift to myself kind of thing, right? It was more of a like, you're a worthless fat sack of shit and you're never going to be worth anything unless you do this. And that's not a healthy way to go about anything. And you're so wonderful, I don't want you to do that. Now, we've been here for a while. Let's get into getting back into the dating scene real quick before we wrap up. What is the latest with dating? Is this something that you're ready to put yourself back out there for? What is the dating scene like in your town?
There's not much around here.
Yep.
There's not. I have pretty specific tastes in people, and that's not the kind of people that's around here. So it's very tough to find people. I'm on like Hinge and stuff, but it's whatever. I went on a few dates, nothing really came from it though. But yeah, it's been nothing much really.
Yeah.
Trying to find people who understand me because
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of hobbies
Mm-hmm.
and I love to talk about them. So I
Mm-hmm.
want someone who can engage with me with that.
Yeah. So where other than dating apps, I personally, I- it's hard to do that. If I had my druthers, I would get every single member of the Hot Fat Guy Club off of the fucking dating apps because they're
It's not.
terrible and all
It's
they
not.
do
It's
is
horrible.
make your self esteem even worse.
Yeah.
That being said, not very possible when you're not in a major city.
Hmm.
I say this every single time we get into the dating advice portion of this. Everything that I say has to be taken with some level of a grain of salt because of where I live. I live in New York City. I literally just have more people and more options for dating at my disposal. It is much different when you live in a small town and the dating pool is smaller.
Hmm.
Now, there are certain things that are universal, but that is something to keep in mind here. And I'm sure it's very difficult to just be like, fuck this, I'm not going to use these apps at all when you're in a small town and you don't have
It's literally the only
9 million
way.
people at your disposal.
Yeah.
Right. So in where outside of dating apps, where have you learned where have you looked where you've had outside of dating apps, where have you had any success, if at all, finding people that have similar interests as you and are single,
Yeah.
whatever?
So I do a lot of musical theater and like play like normal theater. And I've made a rule for myself to not date anyone in the theater scene
Mm-hmm.
because I work with so many of them and they're all
Mm-hmm.
interconnected.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like the only people I know who I like.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's very good to have a don't shit where you eat rule.
Yeah.
Gonna have to put this in like the Hot Fat Guy Club dating rules. Rule number 1A: don't fuck your coworkers, but maybe fuck their friends. Because like, listen, there's I don't know if it was a tweet or if it was an article that I saw about like one of the things that's missing from dating culture today is more informal social gatherings where people can introduce their friends to other people. Please, thank you. Where people can introduce their friends to other people because that's like the best way to meet. Not necessarily being set up, but having that like mutual connection.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I think that like you're right to not hook up with a bunch of people within that scene,
Yeah.
especially since like, listen, I've learned that lesson way too many
I,
times.
I broke the rule
Um,
once and it was bad mentally. It was not good because
yeah,
I worked with them after that, after we stopped, like we went on a few dates, and then we kind of were just like, well,
yeah.
and like 3 times we were
Well,
across from each
that
other in shows.
okay. So that's a thing that I will tell you gets better with age. Okay, it's way more awkward when you're younger and you don't really and like you don't have a lot of experience. Um, and like I know for a fact that that was something that I was not good at, but I think that the it's it's a good skill to your gut is always right. When your gut tells you that something's over,
I
you
have a
should
good
trust that
gut.
it's over.
I have a
Yeah,
good
you
gut.
do. Based on what I've heard you say, you do.
I
Um,
see things.
mhm. And so I, I, what that really comes down to is communication more than anything, where it's just like, if it's clear that this is over and you know that you're going to interact with that person in a professional setting again, you've got to be able to have that conversation
Yeah,
of like, listen,
got to
it's been
put a
really fun.
bookend to it.
Yeah, I think our moment is over. You know, like we can take a split and this and that, but like I want us to be able to like have these, cordial things when we're together in the future. It's funny. I had an ex from college. It was a bad breakup, very bad breakup. Um, I was an idiot. Uh, we were both idiots because we were in our 20s. Thank you. And we now have been able to like develop a friendship over time
Mm-hmm.
to where I had to, you know, it was, to me, it was so painful that I had to just be like, you don't exist whenever I would see you anywhere. And now we've had like a really beautiful reconnection. We've got a really
Yeah.
nice friendship. And that's not something I ever would have expected when I was 22 and that breakup happened. And now
Yeah.
10 years later, like we have a nice friendship. One second. And that is a life skill that comes with time. But I think that for you, you've got to accelerate that timeline a little bit purely because you're dealing with a smaller dating pool. And
Yeah.
if you do have the difficulty of finding people with your similar interests, expand that circle a little bit and then be able to be just like really brutally honest. Because one, nobody wants to have their time wasted. Two, nobody wants to have their feelings hurt. And the more consistently you can come with honesty and vulnerability and really being clear about what you're feeling, that's going to work out better for everybody.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Josiah, we're at the end of our time. Are there any questions you have for me before we head out?
Ooh. What was that thing you were alluding to at the beginning of the episode?
What were we talking? Attention when you're not on stage. So the prescription I'm giving to everybody, and I think that this will be easier for you, is to talk to strangers. Okay.
Oh, okay. I am terrified, absolutely terrified of people.
Yeah,
in
good.
general.
So get over it.
Yeah.
Get over it. I'm going to tell you a secret. Everybody is terrified of everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. Something I want. This is the first time I'm saying this out loud. Something I want all hot fat guys to have is the ability to be so outwardly charismatic and kind and magnetic that they, with the way that they exude their authenticity wherever they go and the way that they take up space, gives other people the ability to feel more comfortable with themselves, right? I want us to lead the way in terms of how we comport ourselves in the world and how we make, even like on a one-on-one basis with another person or a bunch of people in the room, right? Where our fearlessness, our lack of shame, our self-confidence gives other people that like little jolt to do that for themselves.
Be a role model for your younger self.
Exactly. And part of that is being able to talk to anyone. Because at the end of the day, I had a yoga teacher. This guy, I remember seeing him. It was the first time I had ever taken his class. I remember, I'm going to start this over so I can make a better snippet of this. This is a good story that I haven't used yet.
All right.
I had a yoga teacher once who I saw him in the locker room before class. The first time I'd ever taken their class. And I remember looking at this guy, and he was 6'5", covered in tattoos. And I was very surprised that when I walked into the yoga classroom that he was the teacher. I didn't expect, he didn't have the yoga teacher look, right?
Yeah.
And purely judging by the book by its cover, I was expecting him to have a very deep, very masculine voice. He had a cartoon character voice. He kind of talked like this, and it was fucking hilarious, honestly, because I so didn't expect it. Was probably the best yoga class I've ever taken in my life. I remember I was sore for a week. He absolutely kicked our ass.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a physical ass kicking and a mental ass kicking, because I remember we were just about to have Shavasana and be, in rest at the very end of class. And he was talking about how we live in a city of 9 million people. We live in New York City. We're all desperately lonely. Even though we're constantly surrounded by people, we are all desperately lonely and desperate to connect with other people. And yet, despite that desperation to connect, and despite that desperation for love and acceptance and attention and respect and kindness from others, we still have that like snap reaction when we hear an ambulance going by to be like, oh, fuck that loud ass fucking ambulance. And that's always stuck with me, because it it was that realization of like, oh man, we are all desperate for human connection. And it's so interesting that we're in this time where we're all more interconnected than ever, yet we don't really know how to have like small, quick conversations with people. So I'm asking everyone that is on one of these episodes to me to start having at least one conversation with a stranger every single day.
Every day?
And every single day, every single fucking day. And we're going to come back in about 6 to 8 weeks. We're going to do another episode together. And I want you to keep a journal, even if it's just like in your notes app on your phone, of just like, you don't have to be super anal retentive about it, but like I want a progress report of how those conversations are going.
Shit, now I got it.
And and the reason why is, one, you're going to make someone's day better. Mm-hmm. And like, if you want an easy entry point, people with dogs, old people.
I was about to say, old people love it.
Yeah, and they love talking about themselves. Also, I love asking this trick question. What's the number one thing people like to talk about the most?
Themselves.
Ding, 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 ding. Ding, my friend. People love to talk about themselves. So the other thing is, what you will run into in your efforts to talk to strangers, you will have a lot of people that are interested in engaging. You'll have a lot of other people that'll like give you some niceties and won't really want to keep talking. And then you'll have some other people that just don't want to engage at all. Yeah. And the hardest thing to do when it comes to meeting new people is initiating the conversation.
I'm really bad at that. I'm so bad at that.
Sustaining the conversation is easy. You just ask questions. Yeah. Again, easier said than done. But starting the conversation is the hardest part. And the easiest way to start that conversation is to start it, right? It doesn't matter what you say. There are so many other ways. You can have like a hopper of random stories that you want to talk about. You can mention, you can say like, oh, those glasses look fantastic on you. They really frame your face beautifully. People with dogs or old people, like if they're reading something, talk to them about it. I want you to give yourself a bunch of tools in your toolbox of just like bulletproof ways to start conversations with people and talk to strangers and take risks and get rejected. Because the more you get rejected and the better you are at getting rejected constantly and the better you are at handling that no, the easier it is going to be for you to start conversations with anybody, anywhere, and under any circumstances.
It's like an audition. It's a skill. You got to put hours in.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if you think about it, you're auditioning for the role of their friend. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So, Josiah, this was awesome. Thank you so much for being here. It's been really, really awesome talking to you.
Thank you.
And I we'll stay in touch, and I'll see you in 2 months.
Absolutely. I had a great time.
Awesome, man. This was really fun. And you, sir, are indeed a hot, fat guy.
Thank you.
For all of our listeners, thank you all for being here. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to be on the show, there is a sign-up link in our bio on TikTok and Instagram on both my personal IG and TikTok pages at Alex Frankel, the Lion-Haired, and Hot Fat Guy Club. I would love to talk to you. And Josiah, thank you for your time, your honesty, and your vulnerability, my friend. Have a great night.
You too.
Awesome, man.